Welcome to the Tarig Motorsports Podcast. It has been a few weeks since the last episode, but we're going back to the weekly schedule. We're going back to the way that this podcast used to be. So this is a weekly motorsport podcast covering many forms of racing, giving you recaps as well as insights about the motorsport world. The date in which I'm recording this episode is May 30th, 2021. And topics today will revolve around, I know I'm a little bit late, but the Monaco GP and the unfortunate circumstances that befell upon Leclerc, the Indy 500 and its race action, as well as we're going to be talking about the NASCAR Cup Series and also taking a quick dive into some Moto GP. And possibly some world endurance news as well. As always, I am your host, Tarig Waldron, aka The Big Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, we always start off with the quick bites. Elfyn Evans had his first outright WRC victory. Now, he claimed his first victory of the 2021 season. He had about a 30-second lead over his closest challenger, which I think was Danny Sordo. The reigning champion, Sebastian Ogier. He was almost a minute and a half behind, but he finishes third, and the rest of the competition after that didn't really matter. Evans claimed the most of the stage wins, and he had the overall race win as well. And Sebastian Ogier was able to take a little breather and doesn't have to put down so much metal. But I'm sure in the next event, he will be doing everything that he needs to do to finish off with his 8th world title. But like I stated, we're going from that. Another, Supercars. Okay, now we all know Supercars is that relatively an Australian series that is decadent in overpowered cars, a little bit of grip, and talented drivers. Definitely skilled. Now, the Supercars Generation 3 is coming closer. Now, with that, they plan to get rid of the stick shift H pattern. They plan to get rid of stick shift in general. They want to move on to the pedal shifters. That way you can take out a clutch and you can roll with a dual clutch or something of that nature. Saying that it's no longer relevant to the style of how racing is going to the future. But I have to say, a lot of drivers, and me personally, don't really agree with, that movement. So I say this saying that, yes, having that H pattern, having the clutch, having all that stuff within the racing system becomes costly and a little less effective because you can't necessarily shift faster. All right. But when you think about it, Supercars is one of the last racing forms that's still like professional racing forms that revolves around an H pattern stick shift. A lot of times, you'll have pedal shifters or you'll have sequential transmissions and things of that nature, but not Supercars. They continue to remain with the old classic style. And I think that's what makes Supercars its own little skill set, its own little world, simply because of the fact that it is able to keep that component in their series. Now, drivers hate it. Countless drivers have voiced their opinions, and to many, it's considered a badge of honor because there have been conversations between supercar drivers and Formula One drivers, and they're having conversations trying to figure out what's different about the two racing and how it's different. And you could clearly see that some Formula One drivers don't have any clue about heel toe and while you on the clutch and all that. They don't have any clue about that. They just know left foot braking, that kind of thing. There's a gap in skill set sometimes. And there have been clear cases where people from other racing formats have come in, people who haven't really done the H pattern, all that kind of stuff, dealing with the supercars power and everything of that nature, and have to take a step back and realize that maybe they cannot necessarily handle this. But like I said, drivers have voiced their opinions. They are in love with how their system is now. They do not wish to change it. And this is a consensus across most of the series and most of the drivers and most of the teams. So I'm not necessarily sure what's going to happen during the Supercars for their Generation 3 start, but hopefully they don't get rid of the H pattern stick shift. Moving on, DTM. I don't even know how to. I'm never gonna try and pronounce DTM's actual name. It's like Tourenwagen Masters something. Deutsche Tourenwagen Masters. I think that's what it is. Now, DTM has no fuel partner. What does that mean? I'll be honest with you. That actually means that they may not necessarily be able to start their season how they want to, simply because of the fact that they need not only, you know, that advertising and that money in place, but they also need that fuel, obviously, for the racing. And whoa, excuse me. Now, Aral, which was a BP-owned company, did not renew their contract after 2020. Now DTM is searching for new series fuel suppliers. They're looking to switch to e-fuels by 2030. DTM is, of course, and BP didn't feel as though that they needed to be a part of DTM simply because DTM is molding a little too slowly. So therefore, they pulled out. Now DTM is looking to switch to e-fuels by 2030, and BP would have been the perfect company to keep that and work with. But of course, like I stated, DTM is moving just a little too slow. Now, a perfect candidate would have been maybe ExxonMobil. They would have been ideal, but ExxonMobil is not participating with DTM. They will have to find some other supplier until then, because synthetic fuel is expensive. They'll have to stick with the regular fuels and what type of fuels that they know well, rather than e-fuels and all that stuff, because like I said, synthetic fuel is expensive. And to be honest with you, DTM is broke. I feel like that should be stated. I think I covered that in a podcast episode last year, where I discussed that their finances are struggling a little bit in certain aspects. But hey, maybe they can be looking forward, and maybe that might be a reason why BP even pulled out. That might have been another reason why BP pulled out, because they don't necessarily see the longevity that DTM is necessarily pushing forth. But of course, we know that DTM is not going to go anywhere. It's a pretty significant race series in Europe. I was about to say in that area, but in Europe, it's a pretty significant racing platform, and is definitely something that brings in some viewers, brings in some cash, brings in some money, and hopefully they can come back and have fans and all that kind of good stuff this year. So I hope to see some good things happen for DTM. I know they've been struggling for a little bit now, but hopefully they can bounce back and bounce back strong. Now, like I stated, we're talking about Formula One, the Monaco GP. Yes, I'm a whole week late, but hey, it's a week off from racing, therefore it's a week off from Formula One racing, I should say. It's definitely racing, but it's a week off from Formula One racing. Now, qualifying was, what should we say, eventful. Charles Leclerc, he finished off with pole and he crashed at the ending. Of course, I feel like people should know this, but you know, we're gonna just give a quick rundown. Had a full course stop. A lot of drivers complained about the fact of the full course stoppage, which resulted in Leclerc getting pole, but everyone apparently felt like they should have been like they were on their pole lap, or the majority, or a good bit. You know, the people who we expected from felt like people who kind of had a shot felt like they were on their pole run, which in actuality, I feel like no, they weren't. Don't get me wrong. Someone like Valtteri, definitely, I could have seen him going for a pole lap, or Verstappen. I could have seen him go. I mean, Verstappen still ended up getting pole anyway, but and we're gonna talk about why. But definitely, I don't think all of y'all was on your fucking run for pole. Okay, that's a little skeptical in my personal opinion. I don't think that all of y'all are really were really getting there. You would have had maybe some faster stuff, but I don't know if everybody was on their pole lap as they say. Like I said, Valtteri and Verstappen. Carlos Sainz was actually pretty impressive too, with his timing and how he did everything. So I'm pretty sure them three would have been pushing real hard. I don't know if they would have necessarily had pole, but Valtteri to me had the best shot. He was the fastest in the first two sectors on that last run, or on the first sector, I should say, and he was pushing on the second one as well. So I feel like he would have had the best opportunity. But of course, Other people feel like they would have had the best opportunity. But turmoil for Leclerc. He was not able to start the race. It was his gearbox, I believe. The gearbox issue that everyone was so skeptical of, that everyone was anticipating, had anxiety over whether or not he would be able to participate in the race and whether or not he would have to lose his pole position and drop back 5 places. Turns out the man couldn't start the race at all. In his home GP, couldn't start the race at all. That is horrible, horrible news for him. But like I stated, Verstappen used that to get on pole, and Hamilton was starting in P7. I'd never seen him start that far back. Well, recently, I should say. But of course, this is a little different than last season. So hey, we're things are gonna get shaken up. But yes, Hamilton was in 7th. Pierre Gasly, P6. Mr. Consistent. P6 at the start of the race and at the end of the race. My man just stayed where he was at. But Sebastian Vettel was in P5, and can he continue to hold on to that? Yes, I know that technically speaking, there were a lot of variables that went into the fact that he was able to have P5 at start and P5 at finish, I should say. But it transpires to something that you're trying to figure out whether or not he's going to have that capability. Because don't get me wrong, in the first couple races, in the first few races that we've had this season, he hasn't been putting down what I thought he would have put down. I thought this season, I've made predictions. If you go back to my episode, Aston, I've made predictions that I really thought that Seb was gonna put down the metal a little bit and do some real work, put some real elbow grease into this. It don't necessarily seem like that was the case. And of course, in Monaco, he was able to come away with a P5, which is impressive, which is how I would like to see him progress throughout the entirety of the season. I mean, P5 or better, hey, that's good. But he has lapsed since the beginning of the season. And of course, with this one good thing in, in Monaco. I would like to say that he's not necessarily consistent, for sure, and I don't think that he's going to continue to be able to put down what he put down in Monaco, especially since that there were so many other variables that allowed him to retain that P5. Stepping away from that though, lap 30 to 31, Valtteri and his pit crew, we've all seen that one wheel that they finally got off, I think after 3 days. I believe after 3 days, they finally got that wheel off, or after 2 days or something of that nature. We all know his whole DNF did not finish, and because of that wheel. Now, there were a lot of suggestions of why didn't he just go back on. There have been plenty of cases of people of drivers having mixed sets on. I'll be honest with you, after going 30 laps on a soft tire, there was no grip on that boy. After going 30 hard laps, and from the race perspective, he was going pretty hard for 30 hard laps. I don't think that his grip would have been the greatest coming out of that, especially if he had to run with that for the entirety of the race. Soft tires are not meant to go, 78 laps? Soft tires are not meant for that. So he definitely needed to change out, of course, but could he have gone farther? Most definitely, but we know what happened. We know that we're stuck with this DNF. We know that he's stuck with that did not finish. Pretty just bad luck, honestly. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, Valtteri is a skilled driver. He's not the golden boy for Mercedes, of course, but still upsetting to see. Definitely something that you not necessarily want to see happen to any driver. You know what I'm saying? It's not one of those things that you wish upon a driver, you wish upon a competitor. It's upsetting to see, and you can see the frustration and all that stuff with that was going on with him. He was heated and broken down in the footage that you see on the TV and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely not not the best circumstances for Valtteri. Now Lewis Hamilton, who is the golden boy for Mercedes, oh man, he was having a fit. He was having a fit, in my personal opinion. I think it was just bad strategy, paired with just, I don't know, bad luck. I don't really know what to say to that. I mean, he started off P7, went up to, I think, P4, then dropped back down 3 positions, right back down into P7. Position 7. I just don't think that he was destined to get a good position and to get a good final position in Monaco at all. At all. You know, there are, and you know, even in the interviews and stuff like that, he has mentioned that there's going to be a real heated behind the scenes with Mercedes when the team meets up and whatnot, and hopefully they get everything right for Baku. That's all I really got to say regarding that. But Verstappen finishes in P1 with an impressive drive, his first win in Monaco, his second win of this season. He has led for approximately 220 laps this season, and he's going to be leading for a whole lot more. Now, Ferrari was remarkably fast around Monaco. I don't necessarily know why they were so fast around Monaco. Carlos Sainz and, of course, Leclerc were fucking impeccable around Monaco, and that's a staple where I don't necessarily know why they were so fast around there. I don't know if because Leclerc knows Monaco like the back of his hand. I don't know what exactly was the reason, but I know that they were remarkably good and had the best drive, not only in free practice but qualifying as well. Of course, they had, the issue with Leclerc, but they had good drive all throughout that entire weekend. And then, you know, it's Verstappen in the finish for first place. Lando Norris in Carlos Sainz in second place, and of course Lando in third. What an impressive drive by all three of them. They were pretty good. Now, what would have happened if Charles Leclerc was still in that race? If he was still in that race with no chance of anything failing, like his gearbox or anything like that. And I don't want to say no chance. Obviously, there's always a chance of something failing. But I mean, like, if it wasn't to that level, and if he actually didn't crash, and if he actually, you know what I'm saying, I think Charles would have retained pole. I think he would have retained pole most definitely. Because like I said, the only person that I feel like was really on that pole qualifying one was Valtteri. And I'm gonna leave it up to the fact of, yes, Valtteri had the fastest sector in lap 1. I'm not lap 1. Had the fastest sector 1. I'm not sure about sector 2, but he was moving. So would it have been close? Yes. Would Valtteri have gotten the pole? Maybe, but I still think if Charles were to retain that pole position and the race were to begin with Charles, Verstappen, Valtteri, I feel like Charles would have held off Verstappen for sure, and then with that fight, Verstappen would have probably gotten swallowed up by Valtteri, and then moving from there. And I feel like it would have been Leclerc, but I can't say his last name. Leclerc, Valtteri, Max. That's how I see that it would have came out. I'm not necessarily sure if that would have actually happened. Of course, we don't know, but I feel like that's how it would have came out. But that's Formula One for me. Now the Indy 500, of course, occurred today, Sunday. Now qualifying, the 2008 Indy winner Scott Dixon takes pole for the 4th time. But we all know who won. No Roman Grosjean, of course, and Pato Award, Patricio Award. Man, that boy's consistent, ain't he? That boy's good. Rick Mears has a record of 6 pole positions, and of course, Scott Dixon is now 2 more close to that, I guess. And I'm not gonna lie, I had a lot of hype for the Indy 500. I mean, they were projecting almost over 100,000 fans to be in the stands. Like COVID don't even exist. I mean, don't get me wrong. People were probably vaxxed and wearing masks and all that kind of stuff and probably maybe separated and whatnot. But about 100,000 people were projected to show up. I'm not sure the exact number of how many people showed up, but that doesn't really matter. But this is just the qualifying stuff, in my opinion. I have the actual race right here. But if we continue with the Indy 500, Helio Castroneves was the Indy 500 winner for the 4th time in his career. He had a fantastic close finish. The celebratory 4-time winner. The celebration was great. It was, you've never seen Helio overwhelmed in emotion like that, usually. Pato O'Ward finished 4th place. I told you the man is consistent. He's great. And this was only his second season or his second Indy 500. So the man is doing well. Now, that last few laps was remarkable. And I like the fact that IndyCar stayed with the action. I like the fact that it was so close at the end. And I like the fact that it was a top 4, top 5 type of race where if anyone was doing it was gonna do it right. It was if one slip up, you would have lost that position, like that kind of thing. I like that. Everyone had to be perfect. Everyone had to do what was necessary in order to win. And I enjoyed those last few laps. I think it was Helio versus Palou. That was a good battle to see. I'm not even gonna lie. That was definitely a good battle to see. Real quick, I'm just gonna look up the IndyCar 500 real quick, just because I want to make sure of something. But just want to make sure it was, yep, Alex Palou. All right. He had to close off lanes for Palou on the last, I think 2 or 3 laps or something like that. He was, Helio finally got that overdraft and was able to overtake Alex Palou. Now, with that being said, he had to keep that lead going into traffic. Thank goodness that he didn't actually have to overcome the traffic, because that would have made it a little harder in order for him to push forth and get that W. But it's a good thing that that he was able to do what was necessary. And the one thing that I see that was necessary was on that last lap. Palou was always looking to overtake on the inside, I think on turn 2, and I'm kind of glad. Well, not kind of glad, I'm sorry. Helio closed the lane on him and kept him from overtaking in that once in Palou's sweet spot that he used to actually pass a good bunch of other drivers in this race. And it was beautiful to see, beautiful to understand what was happening. And then, of course, Helio went on to become the victor. Alex Palou comes second. Simon Pagenaud, I'm not sure how to say his name. He came in third, and of course, Alex Palou came in 4th. Great, impressive drive by Alex Palou. Not Alex Palou, Jesus. Great, impressive drive by Pato O'Ward. He is honestly my fan favorite driver for IndyCar this season, at least. It used to be Sebastian, not used to be, it still kind of is. Sebastian Bourdais, I think he finished honestly in last. I'm not 100% sure. He might have moved up, obviously, but he didn't finish where I necessarily expected him to, but still, all in all, talented. If I could just find Sebastian Bourdais. He finished in 26th, which, I mean, I'll be honest with you, that's not bad for him. But that's my guy. That's who I want to see succeed, Sebastian Bourdais. And I also want to see now Pato O'Ward pull away with some goodness. Next, I want to jump over to the Echo Park, Texas Grand Prix. Man, That's a NASCAR Cup Series race, and boy, was it very dangerous at Circuit of the Americas. I'm trying to understand. It's like, I know it is a road course, but damn. I mean, there were a lot of wrecks that took out damn near, I'd say, a quarter to half of the field. And I'm trying to figure out, were they going to stop this race sooner? But I guess because it stopped raining and it dried up a little bit, things changed and whatnot. But I just didn't necessarily understand why the continuation, there were bad wrecks to a point where, cars came out completely mangled and destroyed. I don't know why they didn't stop it then, but then they stopped it with Chase Elliott in the lead, and he pulled away with the winner. They stopped it due to inclement weather, which I thought that they should have either did sooner, or they should have maybe put a pause on it or something like that. Or I don't know. I don't necessarily know how they do things with NASCAR, but they could have done something a little bit better. That race was quite dangerous. I'm glad everybody pretty much walked out safely, but not necessarily something that you want to see. And like I said, Chase Elliott pulled away with the victory with 14 laps to go. At that point, I'm like, why would you even stop it? Like, you didn't already let half the field go and half the field get caught up in accidents. So why even stop it? But hey, stopped it with inclement weather. Stopped it due to inclement weather, and I have to say that was their choice, and they made that choice, or whatever the case may be in. But still, all in all, treacherous race. I don't even understand it. But that's just my quick take on the Echo Park situation. Moving on to MotoGP. Of course, we know that MotoGP occurred today, and definitely some sad news coming out of that. I'm going to leave that for last, of course. Well, not of course, but I am going to leave that for last. We're going to talk about the MotoGP race, and go from there. I want to praise MotoGP's camera work. Most definitely, I want to praise their camera work, simply because we know Fabio Quartararo was in the lead. He had about a 3 to 4 second lead over the rest of the pack. We knew fully well he was leading and whatnot, and their camera work is so good because they didn't even focus on that. They just had like a little webcam situation, and they used that to show what was going on with Fabio and whether or not he was slowing down or anything like that. They gave us updates on his lead, of course, but they kept the camera work right where the action was at, and they did it for a good bit of laps too. The Italian GP at Mugello. Fabio Quartararo, like I said, pulls out with the win. Bastianini was out of the race in the warm-up lap. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I know he was doing a hard stop and ended up in the back of Johan Zarco's bike, but I think it was because Johan Zarco was pulling up on a stop that was just a little faster than Bastianini expected, and from there, Bastianini had a hard press on the brake and leaned all the way forward, or maybe he was in the middle of a stoppie or something of that nature. But he ended up flipping forward and kind of messing up the tail of Zarco's bike, so just ever so slightly. But Marc Marquez, the race starts. Marc Marquez crashes out of the race, I think very early in the race, very early. And then Pecco Bagnaia, he had a very great start to the actual race. And of course, Fabio Quartararo came in behind him at second. Fabio had pole, of course, but Bagnaia just had a better start, and he was able to take that lead into the whole shot and was running pretty well. And it looked like it was going to be a nice little battle for first place. And lap 2 comes around, and Pecco Bagnaia, he crashes out, which was tough to see, tough to watch, but it's okay. Fabio Quartararo versus Johan Zarco. That was the next battle for first place, honestly. That was pretty impressive. They were trading positions, but then of course Fabio ended up taking that main stage lead, and Zarco was left chasing. Then of course there's Miguel Oliveira and all those other variables that came into play with what happened to Zarco. As Fabio pulls away, there's more people getting on top of the back of I don't know if that sounded right. There's more people that were gaining on Johann Zarco. Now Suzuki versus Ducati. Mins and Riller going at it. It was pretty impressive to see. Simply because not only was it Rins and Miller, right behind Rins was Johann Mir, and I mean they were them two. Suzuki has a great race pace. They don't let anything stop them. Late race, you still have to worry about them because they're closing down that gap. Granted, if you're 3-4 seconds ahead, maybe not, but they were still closing down the gap. And sure enough, Rins and Miller are going back and forth, and then Rins finally gets to move, and then with that, Johann Mir capitalizes a few turns later and runs Miller wide, and of course takes that inside line, and from there it's just those two guys, and Mir ends up pulling away and actually overtaking Rins. Wait, am I tripping? I might be tripping. I'm not gonna lie. I might be. Nope. I'm not tripping. Okay. Nope, I am tripping. Mir and Rins are now chasing down Miguel Oliveira, who is now in second. But of course, Mr. Rins. It's tough to see that you get a DNF in 4 consecutive races. Do you know what consecutive means? That is one right after the other. It is tough to see you not finishing these races, especially when you have not only a highlight reel filled race on your hands, but also a good finishing position as well. You were in 3rd place, chasing down 2nd, that you certainly should have caught on to, like a position that you certainly were able to get. And with 4 laps to go, he crashes out. Don't get me wrong, he was upset himself, but I too am upset because I want to see him succeed every pre-race. The man does well. Every time, going into every new race, I had faith. But it's been 4. Don't get me wrong. There might be different variables. There might have been slick in that one part. You know, you're playing too aggressive and your grip is slipping. Whatever. I know how it go. But damn, finish a race, man. Finish a race. Get a good position and finish a race. Just a points finish, something this season. Obviously, you've had that already this season, but like continue to have it. Sorry about that. I got a little heated there. But anyway, Fabio pulls away from contention. Rins crashes out with 4 laps to go. This is his 4th consecutive, did not finish. And Miguel Oliveira, and Johann Mir are having a little battle after Johann Mir passes up Zarco. They were having a little battle, and towards the final lap, Mir was still chasing down Oliveira, and I actually liked it. It was nice. It was nice to see a KTM up in the front of the pack. I think this was Oliveira's first top 10 finish this season, which, I mean, it's been a couple rounds, man, but it's great to see. It's great to see. And at the end of the race, they tried to impact the penalty on the guy, which I'm not sure if they actually did. But the penalty was he exceeded track limits, I think, on the final lap or on the second to final lap. And they wanted to make him put him back in position, which I felt was unfair because he was in the lead. It's not like he exceeded track limits to obtain a position or anything like that. It didn't really have that much of an advantage to him. So I don't think that they gave him that penalty. I think he did actually, in the official results, finish with 2nd, and Johann Mir finished in 3rd, and Zarco was in 4th, and Fabio Quartararo pulls away with 1st, and he did it all for Jason De Pasquale. I'm not 100% sure how to say this man's name, but that is what I wanted to finish off this episode with. I'm going to read an article by The Guardian. That's about it. Now, I don't necessarily know how to say his last name. I do apologize for that. I'm just going to call him Jason. If you guys don't know, you can head on over to my Twitter. It's retweeted somewhere in there a multitude of times. The Moto3 rider, Jason D, has died as a result of injuries sustained in an accident during qualifying on Saturday, the MotoGP has announced. The 19-year-old Swiss was hit by another bike after falling from his own at Mugello in Italy. Following a serious incident in the Moto3 qualifying 2 session at the Gran Premio d'Italia, it is with great sadness that we report the passing of Moto3 rider Jason De Pasquale. That's what MotoGP said on their official website. Now, Jason was involved in a multi-rider incident between turns 9 and 10 with the session red flag thereafter. The statement added, FIM medical intervention vehicles arrived at the site immediately, and the Swiss rider was attended to on the track before getting transferred by medical helicopter in a stable state to Careggi Hospital in Florence. Despite the best efforts of circuit medical staff and all those subsequently attending to the Swiss rider, the hospital has announced that Jason has sadly succumbed to his injuries. Now, it was also reported that he was treated on the circuit for about more than half an hour before being flown to the hospital, making sure that he was going there, I guess, in stable condition. And of course, MotoGP, their grid had a 1 minute of silence for Jason. And Fabio Quartararo, he got his win, and of course he went over to the spot where the accident happened and pointed up to the sky. And he also was on the podium, as well as everyone else on the podium, or as well as second and third place, Miguel Oliveira and Johan Mir. They were both holding up their Swiss flag, the Swiss flag on the podium in remembrance of Jason. And a lot of people paid their tribute. A lot of people, gave their deepest condolences to not only the family, not only the friends, but also the team. And definitely a sad moment in MotoGP and Moto3 history, honestly. Thinking of the family and friends of Jason and everyone in the MotoGP paddock, ride in peace, Jason. Those are the words of Williams driver George Russell. It was definitely a sad sight to see. And with that, I give my condolences to the family as well, to the friends and to the team. And I want to say that will be it for this episode of the Tarig Motorsports Show. I hope everyone has a great day, safe day. Peace.